So we got some more details on Hell Let Loose Vietnam coming from two different sources. Today the devs did a Q&A live stream on Twitch to cover some surface level stuff and go into a little more detail about the game itself and all the info we got a couple days ago. But we also got an article from Inside Gaming that came out today from someone who had a first-hand experience. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the Q&A first and kind of break down what we heard from there, and then we'll talk about the article. So in the Q&A, first and foremost, they say they don't want to lose what makes Hell Let Loose Hell Let Loose. They want to make sure those core elements of the game are retained and that game logic will be either the same or similar going into Hell Let Loose Vietnam. They also explained why they chose Vietnam and not to do the highly demanded Pacific. And they specifically state that they wanted to expand out of World War II, and Vietnam was the perfect setting for expanding on the combined armed nature of Hell Let Loose. And by going to Vietnam and developing the mechanics for that theater, they're setting themselves up for the future, and they can develop lots of new mechanics, especially with air, naval, and new commander abilities. And they just felt that Vietnam over the Pacific was the right choice to do all of this in. Now, what I take away from that, if they ever do the Pacific, all of these mechanics that they're making in Vietnam can easily transition over to the Pacific. So that might just be me being really optimistic about getting a Pacific Hell Let Loose, but I think Hell Let Loose Vietnam puts them in a really good position to create that eventually if they decide to do so. And next up, they did discuss how historical accuracy is absolutely crucial for Hell Let Loose Vietnam. Now they're using tons of different references, including first-hand accounts, history, books, etc., and doing all their homework and research. Then they want to make sure everything is correct for the launch of the game, including uniforms, weapons, vehicles. And at one point they do, and this is a quote from this stream, they say uniforms are stitch accurate. And by taking all this time and care to really make sure that uniforms look the way they do, vehicles handle the way they do, weapons sound the way they do, this will make immersion the best it can be. They want this game to feel like you're in Vietnam. And those are their exact words in the stream, and they feel like they're doing a really good job at that. After that, they do go on to discuss kind of the balancing and the gameplay nature of Hell Let Loose Vietnam, with the US and the NVA being so different. One of the big things that attracted them to the Vietnam theater was the asymmetrical balance that both these forces will have. They will both feel very different and fight on the battlefield in different ways. The NVA will have Soviet and Chinese equipment, including tanks, but the biggest difference is the US having helicopters. That is a very powerful tool for this force to have, and they can jump around the battlefield with ease, pick up and drop off as needed. Say they cap a point, they can pick up troops off there and bring them right to the next point. To counter this, the NVA will have a bunch of anti-aircraft weapons to help control the skies. They did talk about how during a playtest they did, how intense it was flying in and doing a hot drop going up against some of these anti-aircraft weapons. And that sounds like a lot of fun in my opinion. And also to counter the quick transportation that these helicopters provide the US, the NVA will have those tunnel systems that they can build. And they did go into some detail here, and none of this was hard confirmed, but they did state that the tunnel system enables the NVA to move around quicker than redeploying in Hell Let Loose. You'll create tunnel networks that are hidden to the US, and they will be somewhat of an extension of a garrison network. So what I take away from this is that it won't be tunnels that you can enter and tunnel rat in, unfortunately, because that's kind of what I was hoping for, because they did express that using a tunnel is quicker than redeploying, like you do in Hell Let Loose. So for these to work as an extension to garrisons, it kind of makes sense in my head for balancing. Am I disappointed that you probably won't be able to go in and rat around? Yeah, but we don't know anything about these maps yet. The maps will probably have tunnels in them, so we can still get our rat fix. Again, none of this is confirmed. I'm just speculating here. But yeah, as far as it goes with the buildable tunnels, it sounds like they will be more of a garrison kind of system thing here to counter how fast helicopters can drop off US troops. The next topic was clans and supporting those in Hell Let Loose Vietnam. And they stressed that there'll be way more support than there was in the original Hell Let Loose, rather than just having a clan tag. You'll have the ability to party up and jump in games together. There'll be clan-specific goals, and you can compete against other clans with these challenges and goals. So I don't know if there's going to be a leaderboard or system here, but it sounds like there will be some group achievements that you can do to really kind of show off and get some clout there. And on top of this, they did say there would be a persistent stat tracker, so not only will you get those end of the game stats, you'll have the lifetime stats as well. So that'll be really cool and fun to show off there. After stats and clans, they did mention that crossplay will be the same as the original Hell Let Loose. So PC will only be playing with PC. That means Steam, Epic Games, Windows, and consoles will only be playing with consoles, Xbox, PS5, that kind of stuff. So no console PC crossplay. And they did want to express again how Hell Let Loose Vietnam has a second dev team compared to the original Hell Let Loose. Both games are going to be developed for years. So they are not abandoning Hell Let Loose with Hell Let Loose Vietnam in development. So if you have no plans jumping over to Vietnam and you're just there for World War II, it's still going to be supported. After that, they did briefly touch on the tutorial system here, saying that when you load up Hell Let Loose Vietnam, there will be a first-time experience to kind of walk you through what everything is. And there will also be a whole tutorial section covering everything down to roles, modes, etc. So that if you're unfamiliar with Hell Let Loose, you should have no problem learning all these mechanics. And that is awesome to hear, because the tutorial system has always been highly demanded for the first Hell Let Loose, and I think you can see that in gameplay, how it kind of puts on the player to do their homework and research to learn how to play the game, which in my opinion is unacceptable. So if there is a proper tutorial system in Hell Let Loose Vietnam, that is absolutely massive. Hopefully it'll help with player retention and just make things easier. And next up, they discussed maps and locations for a bit here, stating that there will be 6 maps at launch, and that will cover a variety of different campaigns. And these maps will vary in terms of location. They specifically mentioned coastlines, urban environments, grassland, farmland. It's not going to be just jungle or the same over and over again. And they did make a point to express how the environment itself is hostile. Now, they didn't say if there's actually gameplay elements into this. They did just say it's going to factor into engagements, making them very different depending on what kind of terrain or environment you're actually in. They did say it feels authentic and they want you to feel like you're actually there. And they do discuss what is different. Why Hell Let Loose Vietnam? Why not just an extension of Hell Let Loose? And they go into some detail saying that this game is built from the ground up. It's been in development for 16 months already, and they want it to be better than Hell Let Loose. And the only way to do that was by going to a new engine, which is Unreal Engine 5. Because if they did some of these mechanics in the original Hell Let Loose, it would straight up break. And by going to Unreal 5, we get mechanics like swimming and climbing. And we get gameplay fixes like the stuttering that is present in Hell Let Loose will be gone in Hell Let Loose Vietnam. And simply put, there are issues in Hell Let Loose that cannot be fixed without the engine change. And they are aware of performance concerns going to UE5. In response to that, they do say they're carefully selecting parts of Unreal Engine 5 for better performance and workflow, especially with the foliage and the jungle. I think this will lead to nowhere near as many lot issues that we have in Hell Let Loose. If you want proof of this and how Unreal Engine 5 works, I highly recommend going and checking out Rolling Thunder. It's another Vietnam game in development right now. They do playtest demos all the time, and it is on Unreal Engine 5 as well. And it's crazy how you can just see the whole jungle. So if it's anything like Rolling Thunder, we're in for a good time. And they also specifically say with Unreal Engine 5 that tanks will perform more realistically, especially with the physics overhaul they're implementing. So that is really cool to hear. And that is really it from this Q&A we got. But there also was an article on Inside Gaming that was released today from a journalist who got hands-on with Hell Let Loose Vietnam. And while, again, there's nothing groundbreaking in this article, this is written by someone who specifically states that Hell Let Loose is one of their go-to World War II games, since it was in early access in 2019, and he backed the Kickstarter campaign, so I kind of believe his opinion here if that is true. But from what he played of Hell Let Loose Vietnam, he says it is familiar but entirely different. And what he got to experience was being a gunner in a helicopter, capturing a Vietnamese village, going through rivers. And he says even though his squad's time was short-lived as they were all killed, but the moment made for one of those classic Hell Let Loose cinematic moments that never get old. He also goes on to say that there are massive improvements across the board, saying that the game actually feels refreshing and that the developers managed to maintain that immersive feeling, all while making sure the game feels different enough that it warrants an entirely new title. And he did have concerns like the lack of visibility when you're going into a jungle theater and how you wouldn't be able to see enemies. But he does say with improved lighting and the upgrade to Unreal Engine 5, it's made a massive difference to the overall color palette, kind of eliminating that concern. And he doesn't go into detail, but he does say the audio is tremendously different and an upgrade as well. And he also touches on performance, saying that he had 0 performance issues. Also, he says, granted that the PC that I was playing on probably had top-of-the-line specs, but I was also keeping an eye on the developer screen during the playtest who was playing on a laptop where the FPS counter didn't drop below 100. So it appears what the devs are talking about in this Q&A might be true. They might be getting the best out of Unreal Engine 5 with performance and all the new mechanics and the graphics it provides. So as of August 22nd, that is all the new information we have on Hell Let Loose Vietnam. What are you looking forward to about this game? What are your concerns? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you do. I'll see you dudes on the front line.